Tom, you've just finished researching some of DSC's major funding guides, particularly the Guide to Major Trusts, Volume 1, and also the Directory of Grant-Making Trusts. What's your sense of the broad trends that are going on out there in the trust and foundations world, in particular, in light of the kind of 5 or 6 years of recession we've been through?
Well, I think in financial terms, assets and grants are increasing, broadly on the increase. Certainly in nominal terms, if you look at them in real terms, taking inflation to account, there is a slight decrease in recent years. But broadly speaking, we're getting to sort of pre-recession levels in terms of assets and grants. I think income is down slightly, but that would be expected. I guess when so many of these charities are relying on endowments and interest rates being what they are so low, then income has fallen. But things are looking okay post-recession.
So we're starting to see some recovery from the recession. What about your sense of how trusts have acted as a group during that period to kind of counterbalance perhaps the increasing social need that has been happening in society?
Well, it's certainly clear that trusts and foundations, grant-making charities are reviewing the need that's out there and reviewing their guidelines and reviewing their strategies to make sure that they're properly addressing the need out there in society, and the money is going where it's needed, broadly speaking. I'm sure not all of them are doing that, but I think now's a time when these grant-making charities are assessing whether they are having the impact that they want to be having or that they need to be having.
And do you think that's kind of more prevalent, say, for example, in certain types of trusts, for example, the larger ones or the smaller ones or the ones in between, or is there no real kind of rule of thumb?
No, I think it would be hard to generalise on the size of organisations. Some large organisations probably never ever change what they do, whereas some small organisations would be really reactive and progressive,
taking
and
innovative approaches.
Being innovative. I don't think you can generalise on the size of the organisation.
How about the kind of picture of applications to trusts and foundations from fundraisers? I mean, the conventional wisdom, I think, has been that in a period where the economy's struggling and there's perhaps less money out there, application rates to trusts might be on the increase. Is that borne out by the evidence that you've seen or not?
Well, we conducted a survey and asked many questions in this survey. And one of the things that we were interested in was the levels of applications that trusts and foundations were getting. So we found that around about 2/3 of the grant-making charities in our sample in the Directory of Grant-Making Trusts, about 2/3 of them were getting fewer or about the same level of applications as they got the previous year, with a third getting more applications than they got the previous year.
That's quite striking, actually, that a clear majority of them are getting the same or fewer applications, and it kind of goes against, I think, what many might have assumed, including perhaps ourselves. Can you paint a little bit of a picture within that? What's that like? What are the reasons for that, perhaps?
There could be any number of reasons. For example, organisations not really having any in-house fundraising team, fundraising tasks being distributed amongst other people in the organisation who might not necessarily have the skills and experience, therefore might not have the same volume of applications getting put out. There could simply be fewer organisations out there to make grants. Maybe some organisations are accepting the narrative that there's no money out there, so are not making the same number of applications.
Which clearly isn't the case based on the kind of statistics you mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over £3 billion worth of grants have been given out by these organisations in the last few years. Of the organisations that were getting more applications, about 1/3 of them were getting more applications. Some of them were responding positively, some of them were responding negatively, you could call it. Amongst negative responses, people were saying they were just binning any increase in applications that they were getting. They weren't able to deal with them. Some were saying that they were given the same number of grants. Some of them were saying they were given fewer grants. Some were maybe increased the number of grants they gave, but everybody got less money. The value of grants decreased. Others responded really positively and said they were drawing down funds from their reserves. They were working longer hours. The administrator was working longer hours to deal with the increase in applications. But overall, everybody seemed to agree that the need out there still existed and they wanted to help as many people as they could.
Given that kind of environment out there for the fundraiser, what do you think are sort of, say, 3 top things that everybody, any fundraiser who is approaching a trust should bear in mind or should aim to achieve with their application?
Well, top one is always read the guidelines and read and heed the guidelines, because what a number of organisations say that it's
don't wind up in the bin.
Don't wind up in the bin. Read the guidelines, and more importantly heed them, because it was noted people read the guidelines but obviously choose to ignore them and make applications anyway, which is not particularly advisable. Read the guidelines, be concise, don't use jargon if you can help it, get to the point, because these charities read hundreds, sometimes thousands of applications, so you need to make your point clearly and concisely. Also demonstrate the need for why you're asking for money. Also explain what's going to happen as a result of you spending this money.
What's going to change in the world?
What's going to change as a result of the intervention that you're proposing, and focus on outcomes, not outputs necessarily. What is going to change as a result of this organisation funding you.
Great, that sounds like good advice. Thanks for watching.